One good thing Rent has done is it gave me an excuse to talk about Degrassi's depiction of AIDS and what it had to say on the topic, because unlike Rent, it actually does address living with such a stigmatized condition. Also taking place at the height of the AIDS crisis, in November of 1990, Degrassi Junior High Season 2 began with a two-parter that focused on Dwayne, a character we'd known as Joey's bully since Degrassi Junior High and one of the 3 regular tormentors of the Zits. In it, Dwayne finds out that not only his very straight and not druggy girlfriend contracted the HIV virus from a previous boyfriend, but Dwayne himself was found to be HIV positive. All through the first episode, we see Dwayne and his friends joke about AIDS being the gay plague, how it was brought on by the decisions of homosexuals and drug addicts, and that none of them had to worry about it since they were quite straight. There is lip service paid to the fact that hemophiliacs were at risk too, but the focus remained on it being something that happened to the less desirables. And then Degrassi disproves this line of thinking many held at the time and still hold today by having Dwayne of all people contract HIV. After it's simply suggested that Dwayne might have it, the tone of the AIDS discussion shifts, even as his friends still don't take it seriously. There's a weight to the words of the AIDS speakers knowing that these same experiences likely will apply to Dwayne, this character we're already attached to. It's especially powerful when he asks the speakers, how do they deal with knowing they're going to die? How do you live knowing death is closer than you'd expect when you're still young and in your prime? We got this a little with Roger and wanting to write one last song before going, but that was all. Through Dwayne after his diagnosis, we see that not only he has to recognize his stay on Earth is much shorter than he thought, but also figure out what happens with however much time he has left. He didn't fit the narrative of a societal degenerate, and the only thing he did wrong was not use a condom during sex. Yet, he still had this virus that many at the time saw as karmic punishment for being bad. How does he face his friends who have shown to not understand or even consider how it is to be HIV positive? How could he tell his dad, who has already threatened to kick him out for his troubles at school? Do the things he once cared about matter anymore? How do you reconcile wanting to continue with a mostly normal life when you know you'd be shunned the moment anyone else finds out? But then, how do you fight the urge to burst when the people close to you are so ignorant to the hardships you're facing and actively make jokes at the expense of someone like you? How do you keep yourself sane when you know you alone need to carry the fear and horrors that come from having HIV because you can't trust those you call close? Then after it comes out that you're infected, what can you do to face all the scared and disgusted looks? Is it possible to ignore them and take part in simple joys like school formals? How do you show that it's still your school too, even though you're HIV positive? How do you fight the desire to run away when people treat you like a walking plague? And then how do you take when your longtime enemy turns into your one true friend? Though Joey had every right to hate Dwayne after everything he's done, Joey's tone towards his bully changed the moment he seemed human. When Dwayne dropped his tough guy persona and revealed himself as someone capable of being vulnerable, when he gave Joey a taste of the inner turmoil he faced, Joey was receptive and able to recognize the pain he was feeling. Joey didn't put aside all of his grievances, but in the moment they were put on pause for something far more pressing. When he tried to reject Dwayne's money, it wasn't because a dirty AIDS haver touched it. He tried to refuse because it felt wrong to take money from someone suffering so much. The least Joey could do to help was drop their ongoing feud, and thereafter, Joey and Dwayne developed an understanding. Not a friendship, but a camaraderie over a shared secret. When Dwayne's friends wanted nothing to do with him, it was Joey who convinced Dwayne not to hide away in the bathroom and try to enjoy his school formal. It was Joey who reminded Dwayne that those who stare and act disgusted are the problem, not him. So many experiences and questions are explored through one character in much less time than Rent had to do the same. What's more, we're educated a bit on the virus. It didn't occur to me until writing the script, but the AIDS-infected characters of Rent are all those who are stereotypically known to have it. Gay men and those who inject drugs. Probably without meaning to, it ignores the fact that most people tend to contract the virus through unprotected heterosexual sex. It's actually still a big problem because, like Dwayne and his friends, many think they don't need to worry since they're straight and don't do drugs. But Degrassi goes out of its way to prove that the horrors of AIDS and HIV are not only for gay men and drug users. It also points out that there is a difference between being HIV positive and having AIDS. Even though it's mentioned rather than fully discussed, it's a recognition that the two are linked but not the same. The show also takes great pains to call out those who spread misinformation and fearmonger without learning the facts. Over and over, it is brought up that you can't catch AIDS through touch, indirect contact, breathing the same air, or even through kissing. I think my favorite educational moment came when Dwayne asked the doctor if he thinks he has AIDS, and the doctor responds with a frank and annoyed,
"I don't know."
Not only showing that you can't discern if someone has AIDS just by looking at them, but also hinting that the doctor probably has to face this misconception often. In the very same scene, it's addressed that the anxiety of asking your partner for a condom and the laissez-faire approach to protection are not justifications for putting you and your partner at risk for a chronic at best, fatal at worst virus. We even learn a lot about having AIDS through secondary characters. The speakers act as an insight to what Dwayne's future could look like, and as a direct source of information for us, the audience. It's explained how even medical professionals can be harmfully ignorant about the virus, that you can't get it from donating blood, but coming into contact with infected blood is dangerous, and that those who have AIDS don't always look sickly. I mean, these guys appear very normal and healthy for people who have a virus that has no cure. It's important to consider that Degrassi is meant to be a source for information and to depict the experiences of the average young person in Canada, and Rent isn't necessarily meant to be educational. Yet, Rent does set out to humanize and make relatable, often ostracized people like those who have AIDS, and rather fails to do so. It takes away the nuance of having the virus aside from needing to take AZT to manage it and dying while considered young. So much more is explored through Dwayne alone than what was done with an ensemble of characters. I feel like I actually have an idea of what it's like to have such a stigmatized and frankly frightening condition, but having to face it alone because the world seems to think that you're morally bad for having it and daring to still exist in society. Like many characters in Rent, Dwayne isn't the best person around, but because of how Degrassi handles his story, I can still feel for him as his struggles are depicted and hinted at. Living with HIV isn't shown to be a nebulous, deadly thing. At the time, and in many places today, it affects every part of your life. Degrassi makes sure that we feel this as much as knowing it on paper. Do you want to keep up with the things that I make? Follow this Discord invite link where you'll get access to my content stream of things that I'm involved in and also my NotAVampyre crypt. There you'll be able to talk to me about just about anything as long as I'm awake and online. You can also follow me on Twitter at NotAVampyre. Thank you very much for consuming this video, and until next time.